the industry has a ton of tailwinds now because everything that's happening with AI impacts everywhere, every industry. But the biggest bottleneck at the moment is construction. We're not able to build enough data centers at the pace that we need. So the industry is expected to deliver much better results, much faster. When you need to build a facility like a data center that is very detail-oriented and you need to build it very fast, and every day of delay is millions, if not tens of millions, if not billions in liquidated damages, you really need to make sure you finish on time and you know what the hell is going on in your project.
Hi folks, James here, and welcome to the Spiro Circle, this time in collaboration with Forbes Israel. Israeli tech is known for so many things: AI, cyber, fintech, but construction tech and construction technology isn't really up there in most people's minds. Well, there's a company called Buildots, which is changing all of that. They have raised hundreds of millions of dollars to operate as some form of company that can be the entire stack for construction management, work accountability, accessibility, builders scheduling, kind of you name it. And I spoke to Erez Dror all about this. He originally co-founded a company called Genda, which was then acquired by Buildots, and now he operates within it. So we spoke about what it means for him to start his career as a construction worker and then found a company that was then acquired and kind of went on that journey. People can code different apps, but they get updated. But if you help build a statue or a factory or a building, those last for years. And the biggest irony is that Buildots is actually helping build the physical buildings that are housing some of the power to power AI. So it's kind of coming full circle. Anyway, we had a really interesting conversation and I hope you enjoy. Erez, thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely, the pleasure is mine.
I'm super interested in your story, but I'm also interested in where it fits kind of within the construction tech, building innovation space that I think people are quite familiar with, but are still kind of getting to know. Maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself by saying that, but when people think of Israeli innovation, they're very quick to think of AI and cyber and defense tech and all these things. But there's something really magical about some of the technologies and innovation blending with some of the more traditional places in the physical world. So why don't we start, please, by kind of hearing a bit more about your journey and what got you to where you are now, please.
So I'll start from the start. I would say I'm not a typical founder, or at least not the typical characteristic of an Israeli founder, because I didn't come from any tech unit. I was in the one of the Air Force elite unit in the IDF. I finished my military service and I went to work in construction. Did that for probably 2 or 3 years. Realized I really liked the space, and that's what got me into it. So basically, construction is what I did from forever. I was a carpenter to begin with. Then I became a structural engineer, superintendent, project manager, BM manager. So over the course of like 12 years, I got to work in quite a few positions, all in Israel back then. I did a bachelor's and master's in construction management. So basically, all of my career was around construction. So it's basically the only thing I ever did was work in construction. And then when I did my master's thesis in the Technion, my research topic was around lean construction, which is like a spin-off of lean management, which is very common in like agile, Scrum, all comes from that. And my master research topic was kind of like the initiation concept of Genda, and what eventually, after I finished my research, led me to start a business with Eyal and Shai, my two co-founders, nearly 7 years ago now. So it's been a while. So roughly 7 years ago, I transitioned from construction. Back then I worked in TDAD to starting a tech company, and we'll probably dive a lot more into the tech side of things later on, but that's how I got into this space and to start a construction tech business.
Well, it's really interesting because you're right with what you just said. I speak to so many people on this show that either come from an investor side and that's their bread and butter, or they mention as you mentioned, they come from the army and maybe some intelligence unit there. but you really got your hands dirty, literally as well as figuratively, in the construction space. And there was something I think in my research ahead of this that you said that stuck with me. You said, I wasn't born an entrepreneur, I was born a builder. But in so many people's minds, those are the same thing. So when did it come to you that those identities that you saw as different start to mesh?
That's a great question, I do agree these are the same things. I think in Israel, at least, when you say an entrepreneur, you envision a tech entrepreneur. One of the things I like the most about being a CEO and starting a business is that you're building something. So I am a builder. That's what I did. My father tells a story that when I was 5, I was building bridges from nails and saying, I'm going to be a structural engineer one day. So I really liked it from day one. And it really is building something from scratch. That's what excites me. Changing the way things work, not taking things as the status quo, which is a builder mindset. It can be in construction, it can be building a tech company, it can be building any type of business. I think in Israel or at least maybe in my echo chamber, it's less common to start a business. It's pretty common to start a tech business, at least in the groups I was with. Living in Tel Aviv, coming from not a tech unit, but an elite unit. So lots of people start a tech business. Not many people start an actual brick and mortar business. Now that I live in the US, it's a lot more common.
That's a really interesting distinction that you just highlight. People start a business, they don't always start a tech business. And I guess you and I, over the years, separately, but it's converging now, but it's so easy in Startup Nation, so in Sarona, in Tel Aviv, to get caught up in thinking that every company is a tech company. But obviously that's not true. Do you think that you needed your specific background, or it's, not even your specific background? Do you think someone that would start a company like Genda, do you think they would need to have a physical brick and mortar hands-on experience to achieve the success the company achieves? Or do you think that's just part and parcel?
I think specifically for Genda, there is no other background that couldn't make it work. Like, we will get to talk about Genda in a minute, or we can let you know how you want to roll it. But Genda took a very different approach to solving a problem, very different from all of the other existing solutions out there. And I think the only reason that allowed me to be confident in that approach is the fact that I've been in construction. I knew how things work. So I think it was very untrivial, which made it a more challenging ride, but a more satisfying ride as well. But I think someone coming from the outside would have said, like many people did, there's no way it's going to work. So yeah, I think specifically for ours, I don't think that you must have construction experience to build solutions in the space. You should have someone in the founding team that has that experience, because it will just make your life a lot easier. But specifically for Genda, I would say it's probably a must.
Okay, wonderful. I mean, it's so interesting to hear these kinds of things and to hear how each founder, or at least on my point of view, from my point of view, how each founder brings their certain background or experience into what ultimately becomes their company. So why don't we get a big overview? Let's look at the blueprints, if you pardon the pun, right? So let's dive deep into what Genda specifically does, the problems it solves. And then why don't we take a look at how Buildots saw value in that, and as many others probably did, but what led to the overall acquisition and coming and joining that company. So I don't want to put you in a position of having to reveal too many secrets or things you mustn't talk about, but I do want to understand how those two puzzle pieces came together.
Mm-hmm. So let's start with the specific problem Genda was focusing on, and then talk a few minutes about vision and where Genda was heading and why that vision aligns so well with the Buildots vision, and we will close a good loop there. So I'll take you back in time, probably 10 years ago now. I'm a superintendent on a job site in Tel Aviv, in Salome, for the Israeli listeners, building a 20-story residential project. And my job as an assistant superintendent back then is to basically figure out what the hell is going on my project. So every morning I walk with pen and paper and I start counting heads. How many plumbers are on the job? How many painters are on the job? How many electricians are on the job? Where are they on the project? What have they done yesterday? What are they working on today? And my job was to go back to my senior superintendent and tell him, this is what we got. I was one guy. They were probably like 80, 90 at that time. So counting them and really documenting all of that took me all morning. So I will get back to the trailer around lunch, give my manager the information. By that time, it was not really relevant because they leave at 3 p.m. So by the time that he actually has the data, he has no ability to really do anything with it. And putting aside that the data, excuse my French, was crap because one guy walking around counting people that keep on moving and you don't know what is the benchmark, what is the actual number you need to hit, it's not a very good process. So that's just to show you my personal experience and what led me to start Genda, or led us to start Genda, is that as construction managers, we have numerous moving pieces. So that project probably had like 100 units at the peak, probably 150 workers working in it. And every specific unit is a world of its own. It's unique. It's a different design. It's a different limitations, or let's use limitations for that. And your job as construction manager on every project, if it's a huge data center, a single family home, or any type of job, healthcare project, is to basically run a sequence of tasks with the pieces moving all the time. So you end up making your decisions basically on gut feelings or guesses because you don't have that data coming into you. So Genda, so that's basically what construction management is related to Genda or related to Buildots or just in general. So what we decided to focus on in Genda is the workforce piece of it, just because I like people. And that was a problem that got me interested, and it also related to the research I did. So we figured that the piece of the puzzle that we want to solve is understanding the workforce on site. How many workers we have on the project, where are they in real time, and what are they working on? So going back to my pain when I was back in the field, trying to automate the data capture of that and then using AI to generate insights from that. And that's basically what Genda did. The uniqueness of Genda, which I will mention very briefly, and we can see later if we want to dive into that, is that all of the solutions that were existing back then were relying on wearable technologies. So basically Bluetooth tags that are carried on put on the worker on their hard hat or on their vest to track their location required a lot of infrastructure. And there are probably a handful of companies back then. Most of them still exist. But the challenge was that people didn't really want to carry a tag to be tracked. So we took a very counterintuitive approach and we said, let's build an app and tell them to install this app on their personal mobile device so we can track their location on site in an anonymized way, which people thought is kind of crazy. Our secret sauce was that I stole the idea from Facebook technically. I give Facebook all of my data very happily because I'm a fool for the dopamine you get when someone likes your post. And I'm not old, but I'm kind of older. So I'm using Facebook and not anything else. So basically the concept was if we can provide them value and a reason to participate, we will get their adoption. It took us 3 years to actually understand that value and build enough of that value to really make this thing happen. But after roughly 3 years of building, which was led by Shai, our CTO, and one of my co-founders along Eyal, it really started working. So we digitized all of their safety workflows, their communication workflows, hoist calling, like moving up and down the building. So that's how we got their adoption. So they wanted to use the app. And then in the background, this app collected their on-site location in an anonymized way to keep their privacy. So that was the Genda hack and why I believe only someone from construction could have feel confident enough to take this counterintuitive approach. So going back to what managing a construction project is, it's managing those moving pieces. So you need to see the full picture to make the right decision. And I can give a few simple examples if you'd like. But basically what Buildots does is it captures the reality on the project and identifies the progress. So what Buildots is basically taking the project design or intent, which is a 3D model called the B model, and the schedule, basically what we're planning to build and when. And then the second piece of that puzzle is a weekly or a bi-weekly 360 image capture. So someone walks with a GoPro around the project at least once a week. And then Buildots' AI tracks the elements that it sees in the image to the planned elements. So basically, in the design, we saw a door. If in the AI saw the same door, so we know it was installed. So from that, we can understand progress. We can understand if we're on schedule or not. We can understand if we're going to meet our milestones, if there is risk of delay, spot deviations, etc. So the combination of Buildots and Genda is basically the full picture. And that's the very unique advantage that Buildots has in the specific space is we provide the full thing, which is what we call construction intelligence. So we know the output, we know the input, we know what was built, and we know what efforts or how many resources were needed to get there. And we're the only solution in the world that can provide you the full picture of that at scale, or not even at scale, just to provide you that. We're the only one that can do that.
Is there I mean, it makes perfect sense when you put it like that. Is there a world where Genda would have stayed independent and grown on its own and seen what happened there? I mean, what was your decision behind believing or knowing that joining another company and, as you mentioned, building that entire view was the right call for you and you folks at the time?
So the short answer is yes, because the construction space is so big and the problem that Genda was tackling was so big, you can easily create an independent company. It was the reason we decided to join forces with Buildots is because it was the right thing to do to expedite that vision. So the vision of how construction works and unifying those data sets was our vision from day one. If you look, like I can show you the presentation I show every new employee in Genda for the last 6 years. It all starts with the illustration of a mountain showing that to get to the top of the mountain, we have to have all of these paths, and Buildots' name was there. Buildots, the CEO, and I, we know each other from day one. We used to meet every couple of months. Our kids went to the same kindergarten. So we used to meet for a coffee every couple of months just to catch up. So we always knew each other and we always knew that we wanted to work together. And probably like a year ago, I figured that it's the right move for Genda as a business to scale faster is to join forces with a company like Buildots to provide the full picture, to have a lot more resources. Just, to give you some not benchmarks, but for some scale, Genda raised a bit over $10 million. Throughout our journey, Buildots already raised like $160 million at the same time. And a lot more workers, a lot more resources. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So Buildots was much more mature business, and Genda had a great product, but we didn't have enough resources to take it to market at the same speed that we wanted to take it to market.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you take me to my next point naturally, which is, this younger, scrappy startup. You're joining this, as you mentioned, $160 million in funding, triple-digit growth. I mean, like massive growth engine, massive machine. What was that like on a company scale, but also on a human scale? Like, what did going from one to the other feel like? Because that's a big change.
Mm-hmm. In a word, it's great. It's a very interesting journey for me personally. For the business, it was, there are some things you need to take care of, that like making the tech stack work together, HR, like finding the right spot for every person. So it takes a few months, but it went very smoothly. I think the reason I was very confident about Buildots, and we could have sold Genda to a few companies, but I was targeting Buildots basically from day one, is that we had a very good fit in two things that are the most important ones, at least for me. One is culture. Buildots has great people. We all, I'm not sure how to say it in English, but it's kind of like very similar in the vibe to what we built in Genda. So it was a good fit. And the second thing is the vision was very much aligned. So as I mentioned earlier, that whole concept of how construction should be managed is pretty similar. I'm basically chasing the same vision. So one of the scary things as a founder of a company, especially in my specific story that it came from basically my life experience, is like giving up that vision is a big deal. And the fact that I didn't need to give up that vision, the opposite. The vision is happening, and it's happening a lot faster. Made it very easy. So every small kink you have in the way, because integrations, there's some kinks, or maybe a kink is the wrong word, but there are some things you need to take care of that are not the most fun things. It's just, it's a thing you have to do to reach a greater good, which is basically building a company. Starting a company is not easy. But when you have a goal and somewhere you want to get to, it's worth it. So it's the same here. And I've recently transitioned, like last week, I officially transitioned from being the CEO of Genda to getting an actual role in Buildots, and now getting more responsibilities as a Buildots employee. Passing my Genda responsibility.
What was that transition like when you were kind of home at the new place while still wearing the hat of the old place? And how did that feel for you emotionally with that role change?
Emotionally, it was not that hard, because we did it like again, because the vision is aligned, it was very easy. Like the big thing is to move the product, at least for me, because I was very product focused. But once I saw that Ori, which is the VP of product at Buildots, obviously Roy and Yakir and Aviv, the founders of Buildots, were aligned from day one. This is why they bought the company. But once I saw that the relevant VPs or department leaders in Buildots understands what Genda brings to the table, what's unique about Genda, what we should change and what we should keep, I felt very comfortable. And I would say it's probably the same for each department. I was managing all of the customer-facing departments in Genda, so customer success, support, sales, product. So each one was a mini journey as part of the journey, but it wasn't emotionally hard. The opposite. I'll tell you what. I'll be true. Someone told me a sentence that is very, very true. When sales go well, all of the rest you don't care about the rest. And the big thing that happened is that because the alignment of the products is so good, customers just love it. So we tripled our sales in the time we're with Buildots compared to the time frame that before. So when that happens, you just understand that you did something right, and then the rest doesn't really, it's part of the way. But and it's the same for a company, like a standalone company and a joint company, in my perspective. When sales go well, everything goes well, and luckily, sales is going very well.
That's great, Erez. Thank you so much. I also want to give a bit of context for the listeners or viewers who may be watching this and unfamiliar. You're actually based in Austin, Texas. And that's where the company was kind of operating out of, and that's where you're kind of remaining now. That's pretty different from Tel Aviv and Sarona and Herzliya. So what surprised you about some of the differences there? And talk me through about what it may feel like to be like an Israeli founder that's over there doing it and operating differently. Talk me through your journey there and how that all fits into this.
Yeah. So let's start with the why I moved. I think it's good context for the listeners. So we started a business in Israel. We did build the product and did a couple of POCs in Tel Aviv, Givatayim. And then COVID started and we started work. Luckily, we were able to land the first deal in the US right before COVID started. So I remember when I flew back from that business trip, I saw a person with a mask and I was like, why the hell are they wearing a mask? It was like 3 weeks after COVID started in Asia. Anyway, so we were always operating in the US. And we always knew that at some point, if the business goes well, I'll have to move, because specifically for construction, it's a very personal business. Like it's very, like you have to be here, you have to show your face. So I realized that I have to be here, which is why I ended up moving to the US. It was super impactful on the business. When I moved, business really started picking up because, again, you're here, you see them, you go to the job site. I spend a lot of time on a job site, like a construction site, because I love it. And it makes the whole difference. And I would highly recommend any specifically construction tech founder to spend as much time as they can in the US.
Specifically, where in, I mean, you're in Texas now. Would you go so far as to say Texas is the place for that, or anywhere in the US?
I think it really depends on the market you operate in. Obviously, there are specific markets that you better be in the West Coast, or better markets to be in the East Coast. I think for construction tech, Texas is a pretty good spot because, Texas builds probably like France and Spain together. So the amount of construction that's happening in the state is massive. This is why I moved here, because I basically mapped where is most construction happening, and it's New York, Texas, and I don't remember what was the third state, but I didn't want to move to New York. So Texas it is, and
on the wall there a few years before, I guess.
Yeah, it's we don't want to go down that route of politics and stuff, but it relates to that, not personally, but for the business.
No, I mean, let's take it away from that then, but let's also focus on Austin itself, because in those years, Austin and Texas has seen a huge jump in high tech and ecosystems there.
So we moved right before, or right at the beginning of the hype of Austin. Like I won't say that we brought it, but back then there weren't that many people moving to Austin. It became a thing, but it wasn't like the thing that it became like in the last 4 years. We moved 4.5 years ago, nearly 5 years ago. So we moved to Austin basically because our business was in Texas. We raised money from Austin VC, like Austin-based VC, and we didn't want to live in Dallas. I'm married. I have 3 small kids. Back then they were 4, 2, and 1, and we figured that Austin would be a better place for our family. We moved from downtown Tel Aviv. My wife hates when I say that, but I told her that Austin is exactly like Tel Aviv because there is a river and lots of cool places. It's definitely not the same as Tel Aviv, but it's a much cooler city than the other cities in Texas, at least in my perspective.
Well, it's weird, right? That's the whole thing. You got to keep Austin weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not as weird as it was 5 years ago. I can tell you that. It's becoming a lot less weird, and now it's booming. Just Elon Musk is opening like
twice. I was there twice in 2024, and I love Texas. I drove 1,000 miles all over Texas. It was part of a road trip I did a few years ago, and we ended in Austin. So we actually entered from Louisiana. So we went through the wine country and all the different kind of places. And construction, I guess, is a good place but I guess Texas is a good place for construction because they say everything's bigger in Texas. So for a construction point of view, you kind of want everything as big as possible anyway. So it's a good location to start and then grow from there. Would you give advice to anyone, regardless of kind of sector or culture, all these things, like your experience of moving to Austin versus New York or Silicon Valley or Miami? There are these very tech ecosystem friendly hubs. Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone who's looking over in that direction? I mean, Austin worked for you in terms of your family and your business, but is there any kind of broader advice you would give to someone thinking of making the same move?
I'll definitely recommend moving to Austin. It's a great city, a great hub. It's very tech friendly. There is lots of tech in Texas and lots of new tech coming. There's very big, like when I say big, I mean like gigantic fabs that are coming to Texas. Tesla, SpaceX, like Elon Musk is in charge of a lot of them, but also there's quite a few very big organizations that have offices in Austin. And even if not in Austin, Dallas, Houston is 2-3 hours away. And these are two of, one of the largest cities in the US. Each one of them has like 8-9 million people. So you can just imagine the size. And it's a great community for Israelis as well. Like there is lots of, especially like my age, I'm in my late 30s. So lots of people in those ages. It's kind of cool because it's the people that move here are, what's the right way to frame it? Many of them come from tech. Like Austin is a very tech Israeli community, tech based. So because the people that move here move for that specific type of thing. While to other parts of the US, they might move for, it's more varied. So everybody works in tech, is probably pretty senior because their company decided to move them to the US. So you get very high quality people. So, my friends are all work. We share the same interests and share the same type of companies. We can consult each other. We all have kids more or less the same age. So it's nice, because the hardest thing when you relocate is being away from your family, your core family. So you kind of have to create your, like family, I'm not sure how to say it in English, but you create very deep relationships with your friends because they're the closest thing to family that you have, which is awesome. It's something you don't get to do in Israel because just the way things are.
Yeah, because you're bound to your own family every Shabbat, so it's you can't meet new families.
It's kind of like you choose your family here.
Sorry,
it's kind of like you choose your family here because
yeah. So is Austin healthy for that kind of environment? Because you on the other side of that, you hear, and this is nothing to do with Texas or Genda or Buildots. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but the loneliness challenges that a lot of people have when they relocate, even if they're part of a family. But it's about finding that community. Not uncommon now in countries in the West to have that as a challenge. Would you say that Austin helps in that, or would you say being Israeli helps in that? Like, how would you say that was overcome in your experience? Because I know a lot of people that move countries and don't make a friend for 6 months, although maybe that says more about them than it does about the place they're moving to.
So I think the uniqueness of Austin compared to New York or Miami or San Francisco is that it's relatively small. Austin Metroplex is roughly 1 million people, kind of like Tel Aviv. So while if you move to New York, especially Israeli. Like, I'm moving to New York. Most of the people don't really move to New York. They move to New Jersey. They move to a place 3 hours away from New York. So it's very spread. In Austin, there's probably like 3, 4, 5 neighborhoods where most of the Israelis live. So it's much easier to come across Israeli people, and like everybody lives, like the JCC, where is a lot of what's happening in the community, is probably 30, 40 minutes away from anywhere in the Metroplex. So it's pretty easy to get with people if you want to. And as you said, it's a personal thing. Like, we're very social people. We moved after 2 weeks, we hosted the dinner with probably 10 families in our house. And every day of this week, we hosted friends in our house, because that's the people we are, and we love doing that. And I would say it would have been the same in Miami, and would have been the same in New York. But there's a lot more support here, as far as like making connections, and I don't know, it was very easy. If you choose to, it's very easy.
Okay, wow, amazing. You make me want to go back to Austin for a third time. I went once early on in the year, and then I loved it so much I went back later that same year. I was going somewhere else, but I managed to steer the plane and drop me off in Texas a few days early on the way. So maybe I'll do that again next time I go. Okay, I want to dive a bit more into the construction tech sector as well, and talk about the rate of change that it's undergoing, because I mentioned at the start of this recording that there are sectors that people are familiar with in the tech space. I mean, obviously AI, you've got cybersecurity, you've got fintech, these big kind of software-heavy industries. Construction tech is famously quite slow to adopt some of these things. So, what can you tell me about the state of the sector? I mean, is it from where you're sitting? Is it undergoing transformation at a similar rate, slower rate? Like talk me through what you're seeing in terms of the change and adoption.
So first of all, the construction space is massive, and looking at it as one space is potentially not the right perspective, because there is a ton of moving pieces. I would say construction is generally slower to adopt because it's very fragmented, and it's unlike tech organizations that one day I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg can decide that he's going to track all of the workers at Facebook, and it will just happen then the day after. Construction is built of projects, and usually each project is a different P&L, which means they have a lot more authority. So construction companies that have 10, 20, 200, 2,000 projects have less mandate over all of their projects at once. It's much harder to create change at scale. So change management is just a different beast, which makes things take longer. Having said that, the industry has a ton of tailwinds now, because everything that's happening with AI impacts everywhere, every industry. But the biggest bottleneck at the moment is construction. We're not able to build enough data centers at the pace that we need, which is why the mega scalers or hyperscalers, or however you call them, spend billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars of building data centers that flow into this space. So I'll give you an example. A product executive that worked on the biggest project then that Genda was on, which was probably like $600 million. It took them 4 years to build that job. He moved to build one of the biggest data centers in the US, which is revenue scale-wise, it was 10x, so roughly from 600 million to 6 billion, and they built it in 3 years. So a year less, 10 times the scale. So the industry is expected to deliver much better results, much faster, and it's just pushing everyone to the limit, which is a bad thing, but also a good thing, because it pushes them to look at different ways to do things. So lots of prefab, lots of automation, and lots of adoption of technology, because they understand that, and that's one thing that Buildots is taking full advantage of. When you need to build a facility like a data center that is very detail-oriented, and you need to build it very fast, and every day of delay is millions, if not tens of millions, if not billions in liquidated damages, you really need to make sure you finish on time and you know what the hell is going on in your project. So a lot more companies are adopting tech in general, and specifically Buildots is seeing huge growth in that sub part of the space.
You're actually reminding me. I think I have this right. Correct me if I'm not right. But the announcement, the acquisition announcement itself, called out some of these problems. Right? It called out data centers, semiconductor fabs, as you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
battery manufacturing plants, and it called out the the consequence that so many companies require physical buildings that host some of the power that is. So there's something quite poetic in all of that. That you folks are playing a role in producing the physical infrastructure that is hosting the software infrastructure for all of the other companies. Does this feel like a bit of a generational shift then? Because it's quite interesting when you think of it like that, and you quite think of the poetry of it all.
First of all, that's the coolest thing about being in construction and construction tech is you're taking an active part of building everything. So the places we live, we play, we get educated, and places that we build the infrastructure for AI and basically the future of humanity in a way. So it is very exciting. It is a big change because while construction is definitely not against tech, like companies were adopting tech before at the speed that construction can move, which is slower than fintech or cyber, but at a relatively reasonable speed, in my perspective. Or, as a business, I would have wanted it obviously to be faster. But now I think the big shift is that those hyperscalers have much higher demands. Like a person that works for Google and is used to building software that doesn't break expects to get a building that doesn't break at the same quality. So it's one of those things is that, they're setting a new standard, which I believe will eventually trickle down to everything. So while it's specifically focused on data centers, but those companies that are now building better processes and actually realize that they can build faster and higher quality would definitely take that into their other markets, into healthcare. So we'll get better hospitals, into, apartments, so we'll get better apartments. So it's a good shift for the industry, and it creates a lot of opportunity.
I wonder if it, and I'm just spitballing here, so maybe we're getting really abstract and really vague. So maybe,
No worries.
Steer me away if this is too like artsy for you. But I wonder if there's a beauty, or I wonder if there's an impact in building something that isn't code, right? So you can have someone that can build a great product, as you mentioned, on a company like Google, but I mean, I don't know about you, but certainly me, I'm not going to see the code of that product. I'm going to see it as a feature on my computer. But there's something quite beautiful about construction where when it's built, you physically see it, right? And it's like a very human reaction of like, this is a beautiful building, or this is a tall building, or artsy, or modern.
It's like
it's like
being
whatever.
an artist
it
in a way.
It evokes a reaction, right? And that's just not in build. It can be anything, right? It's physical art, or roads, or bridges, or apartment complexes, or museums.
I can say it's a very special feeling to look at something you've built. It's kind of like the same thing. I can say it about three things in my life, not in their order of impact on my raising kids, like seeing something that was nothing and now is becoming a person, building a company, like looking at an idea and then actually something that people use, and anything physical that I ever took part in building. Like I specifically, every time, might be a weird story, but the first thing I designed as a structural engineer on my own without my manager was a fence in the Hilton Hotel in Golden Beach. Every time I go to Golden Beach, and I used to live right across there, I look at this fence and I was like, wow, I designed it and it's still here. And it's a fence. Later, I designed buildings, which was more exciting. But even my kids, when we drive by buildings that use Genda, I'm telling them this product is using Genda. And they know the buildings, and you can actually look at it, and I'm proud of myself. They're proud of me. The tricky thing is they think I own the buildings, which I hope I did. But they're like, this is Dad's building. And no, it's they use Genda.
How long you can keep that going in their mind.
Yeah, they're too old now. But yeah, there is a lot of pride. And this is what keeps people in construction, if you ask me. It's a super tough industry. But looking at, like, realizing that there was a dirt here 2 years ago, and now there is a building with people living, playing, working in it, is a very fulfilling feeling.
And the longevity of it as well, like you mentioned, years later it's still there and it's not replaced by some software update, or it's
Yeah.
not, all of that. You're reminding me, this is incredibly off topic and I'll probably end up cutting it, but you're reminding me of, if you ever saw the sitcom How I Met Your Mother, and
Hmm.
Ted is the architect and he says, I want to add to the skyline of Manhattan because I want my work to outlive me and I want it to be there forever or long after I'm gone
Hmm.
or something. So I can completely understand the beauty of it. And all of my work now is digital, but I can definitely relate to when I would write all of these essays in school and I'd have it printed and I'd see,
Hmm.
like 10 or 15 pages of essay work or whatever it was. But I've always said that, physically seeing something printed, at least from a writing point of view, seeing it printed and as a pad of paper is way more satisfying than seeing it as an icon on your desktop. But I'll reckon
Yeah.
with that myself at a later date.
Yeah, it's a lot more lasting. It feels less temporary, and in a world that feels very temporary, like everything we do feels super temporary these days, it it's not temporary by fact. And it's at least as a builder, that's the things I like to do the most. Like this weekend, I built a deck in my backyard, and I look at it, I'm proud. I'm more proud of it than what I did in the last week at work, which probably created a lot more business value and impacted a lot more lives, to be honest. But it's a different feeling to, it's even like when you cook a good meal, like that you're proud of what, not like an omelet, but a good meal. You're like, wow, that's pretty good, and I physically made that. I think it has a unique feeling to it.
I had that with my child's changing table, which I assembled myself from IKEA, and it probably would have taken a normal person 2 hours. It took me about 4 hours, but I look at it and it's just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen because after the child that's on top of it, of course, that uses it, but the
It's
idea
called the
of, as you were
IKEA effect,
mentioning,
by the way. There is
sorry.
a term for it. There is a term for it, like a psychological term, which I think is called the IKEA effect, which is that people are a lot more attached, emotionally attached to things that you build. Even IKEA furniture, which is basically just a changing table, but you built it and you look at it every time and you remember that screw that didn't go all the way. I don't know.
Yeah, and you have to lift it ever so slightly to close it, but it's fine. It's perfect. It's just the way it is.
Because it's yours.
Exactly. Okay, I want to talk a bit about what's next now. So, where are you guys in your journey, in your growth? What are we seeing? What are we going to be seeing in the next couple of years in terms of what you folks are going to help build, in terms of where you're going to grow? Like, let's continue that theme all the way through. So, what can you tell me about what's ahead in the next couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's approach it from a few different ways. First of all, revenue, we're growing like crazy. I think we quadrupled last year and we're planning to do so this year as well. So the growth is massive. We're hiring like crazy. So if anyone is working in tech and looking for a job, Buildots is a great place to come to. And the company is really doing really, really well in the data center space, but also I'm in charge of the non-data center space. So also in the general contractor market, how we call it. As far as vision product perspective, Buildots just announced a new category, which I think says a lot about where Buildots sees itself and what we're trying to build. So Buildots was in the past was perceived as a reality capture solution, basically a tool that you take a picture and you capture the reality and you identify progress. Now we're becoming, with the acquisition of Genda, but more than that, as a construction intelligence company. And what we perceive as construction intelligence is basically a platform that can provide full clarity and visibility to what's happening on the project, provide the predictability so you know what to expect, what is supposed to happen, and create actionable insights at the level of a senior project manager. So going back to the first example I mentioned, it's the same vision. We're building a system that is more than one data set or more than one input. It's a system that will have all of the relevant inputs that a senior project manager would have. So what was built, what's the progress, how many people were there, were materials delivered on site, do you have the plans? So really building a system that can cover the entire bandwidth of managing a job site or managing a construction company. And the more of these you have, the more you can take the leverage of AI, which is making it actually easier these days to put those together and provide the right recommendation or the full picture to the person that's managing the job. It's a bit up in the air. Do you want me to give a specific example to take it down a bit?
If you can, yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Because I'm assuming most of the listeners are not construction people. So I'll give it a scenario, like something that happens on a job site every day. The painters come, they're supposed to paint in level 3. And in level 3, the drywaller left tons of drywall. So they can't paint because they will get all of the drywall dirty. Now you as the construction manager, the superintendent, need to send them somewhere else. So you tell them, go paint in level 5. But because there are so many moving pieces, you don't actually know in that specific point in time that you have to make the decision if that place is ready. So there is a good chance that it's only half of the work that they need to have before they start happen. So they can only paint half the floor. And maybe the owner decided they want to change the color from white to red. If you don't have that data flowing into to your brain or to your construction intelligence platform in real time, you will make a decision that will, by definition, be wrong. They will paint half of level 5 with the wrong paint. You will pay them for that. And then you will need to pay them again to paint it in the right paint because you didn't have the full data set or the full visibility to what's happening. A system like what we're building will have that input and basically tell you, oh, the painters can't paint in level 3. That sucks because you should have taken care of it. But these are the specific places they can go work that will make positive progress towards your milestone on your project. So that's what I envision, or a bit more down to earth example of what an intelligent system is. And it's not an easy thing to build, but Buildots is positioned by far the best way to build that. And that's technically what we're building.
Wow. Well, it sounds super exciting. I can't wait to see exactly how all of those things you just mentioned come into fruition and contribute to the future of how things are built. But I also want to say how things are designed and appreciated and how things last and sprinkle a bit of romanticism across some of those things that you mentioned. Erez, we are approaching the end of our time, unfortunately. I've really enjoyed all of the aspects of the conversation where we've taken it in terms of the business, in terms of your story, in terms of the location, in terms of value of beauty and construction and art. I do want to end how I often do, which is with a quickfire round where I just shoot you some questions and you answer them as quickly as possible. So whatever comes to your mind, please give me your quickest, shortest, instinctive answer. So what is the best piece of advice you got before founding Genda?
To give it a shot.
What's the worst thing about working in construction that technology will just never fix?
I think technology will be able to fix everything eventually.
What's one thing that the construction industry gets right?
Sorry, I got it.
Sorry?
The curses. It's a very, there's a lot of curses in construction, which is it's not a fun environment to work at.
For sure. What's one thing the construction industry gets right that the tech industry or the tech world should learn from?
I want to say the people, like the people aspect.
That's so funny because I was going to say the worst thing about working in construction might be all the people facing. But that says more about me than about you. You're probably a lot more.
It really depends on. I mentioned the curses earlier, so that's one of the bad things. But the uniqueness and what I loved is that you're impacting real. Like you can see the impact you're making. Kind of like going back to the romantic side of our conversation, like seeing a worker. It's not necessarily for every tech, but seeing a worker using the Genda app for functionality on site is it's the same romantic feeling as building a building. While if you build like a cyber solution, you don't really see someone using it. It's just like numbers.
Wow, amazing. Who's the most interesting builder, literal or figurative, who's alive today?
That's a big question. I don't know. Like I have a lot of thoughts, but it's.
We can do a round 2 if you want. We can we can meet up later.
Builder, I would say Elon Musk, but he's not a physical builder, but he's the most.
For sure. I mean, just in terms of contributions as well into things they're building. I had a feeling you'd say that. I don't know why. Final question, Erez. What is the best way for people to follow you, get in touch with you, and keep up to date with all the things that you and Buildots are doing?
So LinkedIn will probably be the way. I'm pretty active in LinkedIn, and As long as it's not a boring sales pitch, I will usually answer my LinkedIn DM, which can be a sales pitch, but make it not boring. Yeah, if you need any help, I'm really happy to help young entrepreneurs, especially in our space, but in other spaces as well. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Wonderful. Erez, I'll be sure to put all the information down on the screen so people can follow accordingly. Thank you so much for your time and your insights and your brain today. It was super interesting to learn all about the different sides of building, and I really enjoyed all the places that went, and hearing all the updates in the sector, of course, and hearing your company journey was also super interesting. So thank you so much for taking the time.